Hey YPs, my name's Coral Svetnoff. I am a member of the YPN Advisory Council. So welcome to our executive conversations. Before we get started, just want to give a shout out to our YPN program sponsors, Gibson, Indiana Michigan Power, Martin Supermarkets, and Transpo. Thank you all for your support this year. Our guest today is Kurt Janowsky. He's owner of the Navarre Hospitality Group. I know some of my favorite restaurants and event spaces are part of the Navarre Group: Aurora's, Rocky River Tap and Table, and Artisan in Elkhart. So throughout our conversation with Kurt, if you have questions, go ahead and type them in the chat bar, and we'll get to those at the end. So if you're ready, Kurt, I'm going to pass it on to you.
Sure. Thank you, Coral. So appreciate everyone joining us for this. Kurt Janowsky, like Coral said, I'm from South Bend, went to Adams High School, class of '81. I have 3 children, oldest daughter, Karina, Nicholas, and Christopher, my youngest, who's 23 and the chef at Cafe Navarre right now. Navarre Hospitality Group's got Cafe Navarre, Artisan, Rocky River, Tap and Table, O'Rourke's, the Matterhorn, Navarre Catering and Events, St. Joseph Farm, Crystal Ballroom at the Lerner, the Palais Royale, the Armory, and the Woodward. So about 11 operations. Over the years, I've owned about a dozen restaurants and about the same number of event venues. Started out cooking, in the kitchen. That's where I came from. My first job was a dishwasher in a pancake house, and from there I went to the Moonraker. Those of you that remember the Moonraker back in the 70s, and I guess it went to the Wharf mid 80s or so, and probably closed down 20 years ago. But that's where the Cascade building sits right now, the new building with the condos. Started out cooking for the first time at the Moonraker, and then I got the head chef's job at Knollwood Country Club when I was 18 years old. So, one of the things that attracted me to the hospitality business is they didn't care how old you were. If you could cook and had moves, you could move up. So, started out cooking to save money for college, and I never got that far. I kept cooking and didn't go to college. So my first restaurant was opened in 1984, the Loft Restaurant, where Cinco 5 is now on Colfax across from LaSalle Grill. I bought that restaurant with credit card cash advances, so not a move I'd recommend to anyone, but I needed to scrape together a little bit of money for a downstroke, and that's the only way I could do it. My family didn't have any money, and I hadn't saved much at that point. So I was 20 years old when I bought the Loft, and right before it opened, I realized I needed to take on a partner because I wasn't old enough to get a liquor license. So when I was trying to acquire the liquor license that was available, in the 11th hour, they realized that my birthday was too late and I couldn't get a liquor license. So that's how it got started. Went from there to the Ice House, and then the Matterhorn and the Emporium, and then kept going. One of the questions that Coral had sent me was what she thought that I thought makes a restaurant succeed and what makes it fail. Most people will tell you, I think, that undercapitalization, that's the most common answer to why restaurants fail. It certainly is a factor, and I don't recommend opening up without a little money in the bank. But I read somewhere in a trade journal or something that stuck with me that I believe, and that is they'd done a lot of analysis and interviewed a lot of operators that have stayed open and operators that have closed. And what the analysis found is the number one factor to restaurants not succeeding was a failure of the owner or operator to convey and communicate his message or concept or what he or she thought the restaurant should be to the team that was operating the restaurant. So the managers, the servers, the hosts, the bartenders, the cooks. If there's a disconnect between what they're doing, which is usually what they've always done wherever else they work, and what the person whose vision it was to do the restaurant, if there's a disconnect in there, it doesn't work. And as I think about the places that, we haven't batted 1,000 for a while, I was really proud that every restaurant we'd opened had done well and been successful. And in the last few years, I've had a couple of misses. And I really think that turned out to be true when I walked in, say, Renegade in Elkhart that was in the Matterhorn building. I really liked the concept. I thought it was a home run. I thought it would work. I thought the build out that we did was just right. And when we opened, it was busy and people really enjoyed it. And then I went off to do what I do, run the other places. And at the time we were building the Armory. And when I'd go back into that restaurant, it didn't feel like I'd intended it to feel. There was, the lighting wouldn't be right, or the music would be actually in that restaurant not loud enough, because that was supposed to be a little hipster joint that was fun and high energy. And somebody would come in that was maybe a little older and ask the server to turn the music down, and they would, and it changed the environment for the whole place. You want to do what the customers want, but you don't want to lose the concept because of that. So I'd go in, the lights were too bright because somebody would say, I can't read the menu, and music was too soft, and it just felt wrong for what that restaurant was supposed to be. So I think that ended up being true. I also think that in the restaurant business, you've got to have a combination of creative skills and some business savvy and sense. And those things don't often or don't usually go together, right? You're a very creative person, or you're really a numbers and analytics guy. And it really helps in the restaurant business to have some of each. So I guess those are the things that I think help in the restaurant business.
Kurt, if I can interject, you talked a
Sure.
little bit about a disconnect between your concept and what you have seen for the restaurant, and then, in real life, getting that across to the servers and the hostess and everyone. That's a bigger concept I think can apply towards a lot of different industries. So what do you do to make sure there is that connection, and that all of the employees, from the bus boys, to the head chefs, that they're bought into your vision and your concept?
Sure. I think about Cafe Navarre. When we opened Cafe Navarre, I was hands-on, 6 months before it opened, as we were doing the build out, as we brought the team on. There were just, dozens of conversations and late nights talking to the manager and the chef and talking about what we wanted to do. And then as we hired people, we talked in the interview stage, and then we did orientations. And basically for me, I trained them myself. We were able to do that. All I had at that time was the Matterhorn. We sold the Emporium. I guess we just opened Crystal Ballroom when we opened, but that's a little easier at an event venue. You only have to be there when there's an event. So being able to spend so much time with the people that were going to be doing the work and interacting with the guests really was helpful. And then I think, you can't always do that, right? If you've got multiple locations, you're not able to always be in every one of them. So I think you've got to reconnect and touch base every once in a while, and make it a priority to get everyone together and talk. Start at the beginning, remind people of what we're trying to do, what's important to us, what separates us from our competitors, what we're trying to accomplish, what we're doing well, what we're not. And what happens is you get so busy with the day-to-day operating of the restaurant, keeping things going, and doing the business stuff that you don't have the time, or you just lose the energy. Some staff turns over, so you walk in a year later and you realize that half the people in the restaurant weren't those people you talked to when you first opened, and they've got the story from someone else, and it becomes the telephone game, right? Your message that you told, a lot of people, that message is getting retold, and as it goes down the line, it's not the same message. And so I think what really helps is rather than just working the floor and doing the nuts and bolts, occasionally sitting down and talking about what it is we're trying to accomplish. And I think that probably applies with almost any business.
Now maybe switching gears to COVID, right? So we read that back in March when we went into lockdown, that was some of the darkest days. And we know that the restaurant industry is still struggling. So why don't you give us some guidance on how you've handled this crazy time?
It's an ongoing exercise, that's for sure. I think, I was quoted when March 16th hit that it was the worst day of my career. And the reason was we didn't know how long anything was going to last or how serious this was going to be back in March. So it wasn't so much that I felt like the business was vulnerable or that we were in jeopardy of going broke. It was laying off 400 people, which I'd never laid off one. I mean, we had always grown. Now we've let people go who didn't share our vision or just weren't able to do the work or weren't cut out for it. But as far as laying people off because I wasn't work, I had never in 30 years laid anyone off. And so to go from that position, I was really proud of that, to having to lay everybody off, including my kids, myself. I stopped taking a paycheck, everybody, because we were completely shut down, right? There wasn't any work. From March 16th until May 11th, you couldn't serve a meal. So, I didn't know how. It's not a surprise to anybody to learn that or to hear that a lot of employees in the hospitality business are, living check to check, right? It's not as low paying as people think and as is reported. The people that work for us full time can make a living. It's not minimum wage. Gosh, we haven't had a minimum wage employee for over 10 years, I'm sure of it. So it's not minimum wage work. There's plenty of work. There's overtime available. You can make some pretty good money, but probably not enough that you're going to have a nest egg that if you're out of work for 8 weeks, you're going to be fine, right? Not very many of us have that. And of course, in March, the CARES Act hadn't been discussed or passed, and the addition of the $600 in federal unemployment benefits, we didn't know, and it didn't happen yet. So it's hard to live on, a couple $100 a week, and I just really worried about my team. I knew we'd be back open. I knew it wouldn't last forever. I also knew that I couldn't do what we had been doing if I lost very many of our team members. I need those people. We need those people to do our job. So I was really worried about them. So, we did a few things. Obviously, when you close down 10 operations, all of them have food. We got all the food together at the Armory and took the money out of the safes because we didn't know how long, and used that to buy diapers and dog food and baby formula and things. And then we had a big market at the Armory for all of our employees and their families to come in and just take whatever they need for as long as it lasted. So we started off with that, and then we just waited to see what would happen. Obviously, COVID's been tough. We got back part open, right? We were doing carry out, doing some in-person dining with pretty strict restrictions, so we couldn't do very many people. So business was, less than 50% in the restaurants, and really less than 10% in the event venues, right? We lost, all the Mother's Day business and all the Notre Dame commencement business, and then we lost all the summer weddings. And, late July, August, we started doing a few of those at reduced numbers. But, you go from having 8 weddings booked on a Saturday, averaging 200 or 250 people each, to doing 3 weddings at 100, and you've got, you know, a big difference, right? 2,000 people served on a Saturday down to 300 people served, even though you're doing a little work and you're able to employ some people. We were losing money pretty fast. So, and then of course, a month or so ago, we went back to more restrictions, max 50 people in St. Joe County, max 25 people in Elkhart County. So, and the health officers have encouraged people to not dine in restaurants. And what they've said that I take a little exception to is they combine restaurants and bars. And all of the studies, unfortunately, that they're referring to as far as the spread of COVID combines restaurants and bars. And I don't disagree that a bunch of young people in a bar drinking heavy is not a good idea, right? You tend to forget the discipline, right? You take the mask off, you get too close, and you're standing up and people are gathering together and you're dancing. But dining at Cafe Navarre is not like that, right? The tables are well spread out, staff's all in mass, the guests are all in mass. We have 7 HVAC units that it's turning the air over so rapidly that it's pretty safe. And like I said recently in an interview, we're not aware, and of course they're doing contact tracing, we're not aware, contact tracing, of any cases traced back to any of our restaurants. So I'd like them to separate restaurants and bars when they make these restrictions. You can go into Walmart and there's 1,000 people in the store, and I don't know how 50 people in an 8,000 square foot restaurant like Cafe Navarre is dangerous. So,
Another question from our group here, kind of about the future of what we see for both catered events, your event venues, and then same for the restaurant business. Do you see some trends that maybe is changing the way that we dine, or do you think we'll just pop back to normal? What do you see the future looking like?
I think that it'll be a progressive thing, right? So you saw this summer and late into the fall a preference for outdoor dining. And we tried to accommodate that. We at Rocky River, we put a big tent up and did outdoor dining all summer and into the fall, and had some barbecue and live music out there, and it was kind of fun, and people enjoyed it, and it really helped with business. I don't personally think people are going to do the little igloos out in January. I think people might do it once, and then they'll find out that's not really that comfortable of a way to dine. And in our business, the hospitality business, it's not just about feeding somebody, right? You can do that. You can go to the store, buy food, cook yourself, feed yourself. It's about an experience, and I just don't think the experience is good enough outside in the winter in northern Indiana. I think I think it'll take a while to get people comfortable dining out indoors again, and then it'll take a little longer to get comfortable with density, right? So when the restaurants are crowded and there's a lot of activity, I think people are going to cringe a little bit because it's human nature. After a year of this, it's going to be hard to get back. I do think we will get back, and things will get back to normal. I think 2021 will be a transition year that'll just ramp up slowly, and hopefully by next fall, it's back to normal. The event business is a little harder. So the event business in our company has always supported the restaurant business. It's kind of the thing that gives us the luxury to run restaurants, which aren't very profitable. If you work really hard and do it really well, you make a peanut on a little bit of business. But the event business is better, and the reason it's better is you know exactly how many are coming, exactly what they're eating, and exactly what time they'll get there, and you don't have that information in the restaurants. So, if you prepare for 50 and 100 show up, it's a problem. And if you prepare for 150 show up, it's a problem in restaurants. That doesn't happen in banquets and weddings and company parties. You know ahead of time how many are coming, what time they're coming, and what they're eating. So it's a little. The reason it's more profitable is you can dial in labor and food and have very little waste. So, but gatherings is what we do, and gatherings is what's not recommended right now for COVID. So the event business and catering business has taken the biggest hit for us. Up until October, my restaurants were at about 75% of normal. And that's a range from O'Rourke's doing the worst, of course, with no football, to Artisan and Cafe Navarre and Rocky River doing pretty well. So, however, the event business is at 10% of our 2019 levels right now, year to date. So, and that's how we'll finish. So we're going to go 2020, the entire calendar year, doing 1/10 of what we would have done had this not happened, and that's tough. I think that there's going to be a lot of restaurants close between now and March if we don't get another round of stimulus before then. So, going to be some rough sledding.
Next question is marketing related, the two-part. So when you establish a new restaurant, do you have like a customer demographic in mind? And then what are your strategies for advertising promotions that you employ or recommend to new ventures?
So I would say marketing's my weakest suit. I have, and what we've settled on is mostly because we've been doing it for 35 years, so you see what works. Yes, we definitely have a demographic and a customer base in mind, right? When we open a restaurant, we are thinking about who our customer is, who we want them to be, and are there enough of those people in our market, and who else is in that market segment that we have to share that business with, and where can we position ourselves so that there's enough room. In our, kind of ironically, or I guess surprisingly, in the South Bend Elkhart market, we have more restaurants per capita than Chicago. So Chicago's got 10 times the restaurants, but 20 times the people, right? And it's a really competitive environment. We've always had a lot of chains, as you know. Most of them, right? Most of the national chains that you know of have a location in South Bend, Mishawaka. But in the last 10 years or so, there's been way better independence. I think George and Tammy Pesic really had a lot to do with that, with Corn Dance and then Evil Check and now Jesus, and Cunningham's got Brewburger before that, Livery, and Jonathan Lutz had The Mark and Uptown Kitchen, now just Uptown Kitchen. And there's a bunch of single unit kind of, I call them mom and pop operators, right? It's a family that operates a single independent, and those are really strong in our market. There's really a lot of good food. Now you've got, I dined at Rosalie last night. Naaman's doing a fantastic job there. The food's really good. Fatbird just opened. They're doing well. Bantam, Dante Shaw's place. So there's just all these places. And so as we think about how we're going to market, we've got to differentiate ourselves from our competitors, right? What do we offer that they don't? Decide what that is, and then communicate it to our consumers, right? Our customers. We have to somehow let them know what it is we're doing and why Cafe Navarre is a good choice if they're looking for whatever they're looking for, right? So we try to make sure we have an identity, right? We know what it is we're doing, and then speak to that identity in a way that our potential customers understand. But and the bottom line is, in our business, it comes down to food and service. If we do a really bad job marketing, but we have really terrific food, excellent food, and great service, we'll do fine. You'll go, you'll have a good time, you'll enjoy your meal, you'll tell your friends, hey, have you tried so-and-so? No, why? You tell them why. It's really the best at marketing, of course, is word of mouth. But In restaurants more than other things. I think if you've got a muffler shop or something that people can't really say what the difference is, where you get your oil changed, or I don't know, there's a million businesses that need to advertise because there's too much similarity between them and their competitors that marketing is their only way to get on top. I don't know that that's true for restaurants. I don't think you can market your way out of mediocre food. And I really think in our business, our saying is you got to put it on the table. You can talk about anything. I can put a billboard up saying we've got the best steaks in town, but if you go into one of our restaurants and you don't think so, doesn't matter what I said. You're going to believe your personal experience or the recommendation of somebody you trust way over anything I might say in the newspaper or an outdoor or a radio spot.
Great, thank you. Another one, kind of back to the uncertainty with COVID. How are you managing all this stress? What tools are you using to keep yourself sane when your family especially is so deeply embedded in this business?
Yeah, one of the things, everyone's got personal quirks or things that make them who they are, and an ability to handle stress is probably my superpower. I exercise a lot. I run. Running's my aphrodisiac, and it not only does it keep me physically, and I got to keep the cardio up so I can handle the pace, because the pace in our business is really fast if you have one restaurant, and if you've got 11 operations, man, you better be able to go. And so running helps me, but I've always, I've never gotten apprehensive taking tests. My heart rate's in the mid 40s, resting. I have low blood pressure. I just am well suited to deal with stress, I guess. And to be the other way I think of it, I think it's a pretty hopefully a healthy way of thinking of it. What we're doing isn't brain surgery, right? If we don't do something well, nobody dies. If we struggle, we can pivot, we can make an adjustment, and do it better tomorrow. Every day is a new day. If we have a bad service, God forbid, we can have a good service tomorrow. There's nothing that keeps us from being able to do it better. And COVID's going to end. There's 3 vaccines and late stage trials past trials waiting for approval. I think healthcare and frontline workers are going to see vaccinations start this month. I think at-risk people and elderly will start next month. And I think by April, most of the population will have had access to the vaccine and we can get back to normal.
Now, do you have any advice for someone who maybe wants to get in the restaurant business but doesn't have any connections or a larger network? How do you seek out mentorship?
So if you've got any other skill set, do that instead. I really think restaurants are for people who that's all they do, that's all they want to do. Not just, hey, I got a really good lasagna recipe and I think I can serve it to the public. If you just enjoy cooking, that's not a good enough reason to do restaurants, because that's not what restaurants do. You're not individually cooking much. Now, you can get a little place like I just mentioned, Dante and Eamon, they're doing the cooking in their restaurants, but that's a really small, and you've got to have exceptional talent like they have, and have an opportunity in a small, really low overhead place that if you do 20 covers, you can pay your rent. Restaurant business is tough. There's really serious competitors in it. The national chains have things dialed in. They've got all the resources, all the marketing resources and research. They can get things really dialed in and scoop up the best locations, and they're going to be tough competitors. So I think if you've worked in restaurants, that's what you've done, you love it, you never want to do something else, you've got lots of experience in them, and you have in your mind what you would do differently. Like you're working at Cafe Navarre, you're working for me, you've been there 8 years, and you think, if this was my restaurant, these are the 3 things I'd do different, I think it would work. Great, do it if you can find the capital to do it. But if it's just something that you're taking a flyer on because you enjoy dining out, you go in, it seems like there's a lot of people, you think the owner's making a lot of money, I wouldn't do it. I mean, we have a higher failure rate than any other business. That's not just something people say, it's true. And there's no reason to believe that the people that enter into the restaurant business aren't as skilled or talented or smart or as hardworking as in any other business. So the fact that more of them fail, to me, says that it's just a more difficult business to be successful in.
Now, do you have any advice for young professionals who have interest in entrepreneurship? You mentioned at the beginning when you first started, you used your credit card to
Yeah.
first restaurant. So what advice do you have for us?
Well, being an entrepreneur means taking risk, right? By definition, it's part of it. So if that's in your nature anyway, then you're well suited. When I talk to somebody and I'm talking about, I'm going to Vegas, oh, I never gamble. Really? Never gamble? No. I'm too conservative to gamble. You're probably not an entrepreneur. Now, that might sound silly, but I think those characteristics and those character traits go hand in hand. So it really is gambling. I think that if you have that personality and you have a skill that you think you can do well at, absolutely. Taking risks is fine if the risks make sense. If you talk to really sensible people, skeptical people, and you tell them your plan, what it is you want to do, and they shoot holes in it, right? Like they're going to do, well, what about this? What about this? And you can't defend your position very well, or you can't articulate why they're wrong and you're right and convince them, you might not succeed, because you've got to have it in your head what it is you're going to do. And you have to be able to communicate that, not just to your future employees, to lenders who might help finance it, or investors, and to your customers. So you better be able to explain to anyone who says you're never going to make it why they're wrong and you're right. And if you can't do that, you might not be ready.
Thank you. Last one, more of a comment than a question, but they wanted to thank you for all you do to drive the passion for Mishawaka with Navarre Hospitality. Also a shout out to Matt and Brad at Artisan. They do a phenomenal job. And then the tents at Rocky River were great. And I know I dined there this summer and that was an awesome experience as well. So they wanted
Thank you. Thank you.
So that's all the questions that we have. So, thanks, Kurt, for spending some time with us. Another shout out to all of our program sponsors, Gibson, Indiana, Michigan Power, Martins, and Transpo. All you YPs, we have a ton of fun events planned for our Merry Mixer events next week. So make sure you check social media, the YP website to get enrolled in those. But thank you, Kurt. Really appreciate your time.
You're very welcome. It was my pleasure.
All right, everyone, take care. Stay safe.